And we are rolling. I am with the one and only Dr. Ann. We've talked, we've collaborated, we have had great conversations, we've helped veterans, but it is the first time that I can see you. I am blessed to be able to sit with you. How are you?
The feeling is mutual.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you coming from? Where you're at? A little bit of your background, and then we'll kind of roll from there.
Yeah, I'm currently living in Henderson, Nevada, or I normally just say Las Vegas. Everybody's familiar with Sin City. Yeah, a little bit about me, man. Like you said, I'm Dr. Ann James. I'm a proud Air Force veteran. I'm originally from Columbus, Georgia, by way of California. Served 21 years in the military, went straight in after high school because, I wanted money for college, and my mother was a single parent, so I didn't want to put that burden on her.
Yeah.
So my oldest brother was in the military, in the Air Force, actually at the time. So one summer I went to go visit him, and I liked what I saw, and I decided to join the Air Force.
So you're saying that if you would have seen like a Marine Corps base or something, you would have gone that way?
Dude, no. So check it, right? My stepfather was at the time, he was Army. So I knew I wasn't going to go Army because I didn't want to be sleeping in no field every day doing PT and all that type of stuff. So I knew that wasn't going to happen. But I just followed my big brother's footsteps, and it didn't lead me wrong.
And what did you do in the Air Force?
Yeah, yeah. Actually, so when I went in enlisted, and
Okay.
I was personnel at the time.
Okay.
So I really enjoyed that. My best part of my enlisted career field was when I became an instructor at Keesler at the schoolhouse,
Okay.
where I was teaching personnel, and that's why I found my love for teaching and speaking and just being in front of people and stuff like that. So about 12 years in, man, I was going to get out, but I was fortunate that I had someone sit me down and they were like, "And don't make a life decision based off of, somebody you don't like." I didn't like my supervisor at the time. I was stationed at Dyess Air Force Base, which was in the middle of Abilene, Texas, nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't like it. So I was going to get out, even though, at the time I was a single parent. I was afraid to get out, but I didn't like it that much. But someone sat me down and just, spoke some life into me. So I decided to stay. So with that, with deciding to stay, if I'm going to stay in at the long run, I'm going to make the most of it. So at the
Hello.
time, the military, yeah, the Air Force came out with this program where, if you was in within a window of completing your bachelor's, or if you already had yours, like myself, I got out for a year, did ROTC, got my master's, and came back in as a second lieutenant. So I crossed over to the dark side, uh,
Mm-hmm.
and I became a financial officer. So yeah,
Really? So you were
yeah,
in. So you were a finance officer.
yeah. Once I switched over, I was a finance officer. Was stationed at, like, where was I? Montgomery,
Mm-hmm.
and then I went to Sumter, South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
Um, got deployed to Iraq, as a financial officer.
Where did you go? Where were
Um,
you in Iraq?
I was in, it's called Fob Union 3. It was like a little south of Baghdad, the
Okay, so
embassy there.
you
So,
were north in Iraq. Up
yeah,
north, yeah.
yeah,
What years were you there?
yeah. I was there 2009, 2010.
So here's a fun fact for you. I believe in some shape, fashion, or form we may have crossed paths
All right.
because I was a dispersing manager, and we
Really?
went. So we held to Lil and Adder down south, and we were there from '09 to 10, and we had all the financial operations down in the south. So we were the financial management company that funded all the ops in the south, but we would go to Baghdad every so often to do different things or whatever the case may be with higher headquarters and all that stuff. But yeah, we're there from '09 to 10, and we went up there quite a little bit. And as you know, right, doing some of those dispersing and financial management type of operations, we would go to all those fobs and cobs all throughout the place. Well, at least we did. We would, we were all over the place. But that's yeah. When you said that, I was like, small world.
You know how
Hmm.
I do. You know how it rolls, man. You know the military is small, so
Yes, it is.
exactly.
Yes, it is.
It really
Yeah,
is. Yeah.
it's interesting. So, and then from there, you serve your time. And when do you continue into move? So, talk to me a little bit about from the period of transitioning from service, the things you did there. Where do we pick up the doctor piece?
Yeah. So yeah, after 21 years of service, I retired. I was ready to go. A lot of people, was afraid to are afraid to transition. You hear all the horror stories and stuff like that, which is definitely true. But since I made the decision when I was enlisted, 12-year mark, that's when I started preparing for my transition. Right. I knew that 21 years. I won't stand no 30 years. I'm just going to get what I can get and I'm getting out, So I started
Hmm.
preparing then. And what I mean by that, preparing my mindset for the civilian lifestyle, preparing my finances, my life, so that, the training, the education, all that type stuff. So that it can be a smooth transition. And it was. So yeah, in 2011, I retired. Once again, from being prepared, I knew that I didn't want to go to work for anybody else again. And I knew that I wanted to take some time off from when I retired. So I took a year off and I pretty much did whatever I wanted, when I wanted, with whoever, you know what I'm saying? I
Like,
did
look,
not want
just
to be one of
freedom. Don't
those
tell me what
moms.
to do. I'm just gonna go with the wind.
That's it. And that's you hit it right on. That's my definition of freedom, to do what I want, when I want, without worrying about money. And I did that.
Which, by the way, no pun intended, but that segues perfectly into the conversation that we're going into, which obviously everyone has seen, which is creating a financial future for veterans and that literacy, that education, because people can want freedom, but guess what? If you can't afford that freedom, you're gonna have to do what you got to do. And the fact is, one can facilitate the other, but it's not impossible. And I think literacy and just information of what's available, what's possible for many individuals, especially those that may be transiting service, those that may have been out already and just don't have a clue. Because sadly, sometimes we just don't know how to ask for information, right? We get a lot of information in training, but it's funny in these one-on-one conversations that we've been having. There's a common denominator between everyone who's had a successful career and gone forward to do other things. And the things that I've heard are things to the effect of, taking that skill set from the military and applying it to my personal job. The attention to detail, implement it into what helped me become an entrepreneur, or work for someone else because I chose to do that field. So tell me, so you spend a year. We're gonna hit on the financial piece. What happens after a year where you say, okay, that was fun. Now I got to start doing something because you're gonna go stir crazy after a while.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny, actually. That's when I knew, once again, I knew I wanted to work on my doctorate. So I had the Montgomery GI Bill. I had old school, the I didn't have the 911 at the time. I had the Montgomery GI Bill. So that's, once again, that's what I did. I used my GI Bill to earn my doctorate. I treated it as my full-time job. And that's when I became Dr. Am. I'm a doctor of education and organizational leadership. So I like to clear that up. I'm not a
Mm-hmm.
medical doctor. You can call me your money doctor. Okay, I
Okay.
can get
Hello.
your money right, not your
Hello.
body.
Look,
Okay.
I need you to pull I need you to pull out all the special tools you got, and we need to cut deep into the marrow of the problem here. Not like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's when I became a doctorate. But like you said, man, I just wanted to take what I learned in my experiences being a single mother while in the military of a daughter that was diagnosed with special needs. That's where things changed for me. When I heard that diagnosis, I remember I was in the hospital and the doctor came in. My daughter was about 4. She was delayed, that type stuff, but they called it developmentally delayed back then. But I just remember I can see his mouth moving, but I wasn't hearing what he was saying. I was just like, what? In shock. What does that mean? Developmental delay.
Like I
Is
hear
she
everything
gonna
you're
deal with
saying, but it's like a box comes, and I'm just stuck in my own little world, and everything's like the cartoons, womp 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 womp, and you're like, Lord, what is happening here?
exactly? I was like, what does that mean? That means she gonna live with me forever? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
forever, ever? I thought
Yeah.
that. So, and I remember on the drive home, it was like my mother in my ear. My mother always told me, you have to be in a position to take care of yourself and your children, no matter what, with or without a man. So I knew at that time in my life that I wasn't in a position to take care of my daughter the way that I wanted to, especially with this new diagnosis. So it was at that time that I got my finances together, listened to Dave Ramsey, Susan Orman, self-taught, because it wasn't talked about when I was growing up. So really self-taught. And then at that time, that's where my love for personal finances began, meaning that if I can do it as a single person of a special needs child, no one has any other, excuses. So I pull myself up and follow what I call my money battle plan to end up paying off over $300,000 in debt in 3 years. So
Say that one more
yeah.
time because that needs to resound back again. You're not just gonna gloss over 300 grand that just supposedly disappeared. Say that what?
Yeah, yeah. I use what I call my money battle plan to be able to pay off over $300,000 in debt, whether you're talking about credit card, mortgage, in 3 years. Yeah.
Wow.
And don't get it twisted. It's not because a doctor. Remember, I'm still not working. That's because I chose not to work. But so
Right.
I haven't started as an entrepreneurship yet. So basically, I'm living off my retirement check. I retire as a captain, so it's pretty nice.
Mm-hmm.
And my, disability and
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. But it can be done. That's why I want to
Right, but
help my
and that's a
fellow
good
too.
point to focus on. It's you're not balling on that retirement money by no means, but it's not
Exactly.
impossible to have a plan. Basically you took basic, a manageable, retirement, right? Let's call it what
Yeah.
it is. Nothing crazy where you got like golden, parachute type of situation, right? Like most people can relate to what retirement as a captain is with disability rating or something to that effect. And in turn, you were able to strategically put a plan in place to accomplish your goals, which means that no, it wasn't like you had it like that and you could just do it. No, you had to intentionally put a plan in place, eat a little dirt, and not figuratively, but you really put priorities as to what you wanted to do, so that you can then have the freedom you want after that.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. It was all about, like you said, being intentional. Why was it so important to me? My daughter.
Mm.
I didn't want her life, for her future or for her life be based off of my past
Hmm.
mistakes. So that was my why for being intentional and staying focused to get
So,
where I'm at now.
at what point do you create your organization where you begin to work and kind of move into the finance field?
Yeah, actually, how that all came into be, man. Once again, I did eventually decide to get a job. It was my dream job. I was a contractor. It was a veteran financial coach. I actually got paid to teach veterans about finances on a contract with the government,
Wow.
but a federal government. So, unfortunately, the contract ended. So, not I shouldn't say ended. Well, it did end, but it didn't get funded. So the program ended, but the organizations had got used to me providing my services. They had built kind of my services into their program. So they asked me, Ann, do you know anybody? Are you going to do anything to continue this? And I said, as a matter of fact, I am. And I just stepped out on faith,
You,
and that's how Financial Freedom Battle Buddies was born.
so you're telling me you did like one of those cartoon things? They were like, "Hey, can we find someone?" You say, "Hold on for a second," and you came back with a different color shirt saying, "Hello."
Yeah, honey, I changed my hair, my shirt, everything. Okay.
They're like, there's something quite familiar about you here. Um,
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So it was a blessing. I had established those relationships,
mm,
right? So that I was prepared. So when the opportunity presented itself, I could, step right into it. It was scary because I didn't know.
hmm.
I didn't know. I didn't know anything about being an entrepreneur. I knew I wanted it because of the
No.
freedom, but I didn't know what that required. So I was able to, like you mentioned early on, swallow that pride and reached out for help to this other financial coach that I knew. I had took some of her training. I'm like, what do I
Mm.
charge? What do I do? And she got on a call with me and we reverse engineered some things and made it happen.
I want to pull something out that you just said, and I should do this more in the beginning, but it usually happens in the middle of the conversations, where there are things you're saying that I just have to stop you sometimes because I know because you know how it is. Like you know your truth, but literally you've been dropping some gems. So every time you drop one, I gotta stop you and be like, hey, we're gonna go back here and focus on this. But there's a
Okay.
point that you touched on, which is one in being intentional. But then there's something that I think is universal for anyone, right? Because again, the story is you served, you commissioned, you got out, you took some time, you went to school, you contracted. All those things built and enabled you to step into the place of saying, "I can do this." And granted, there's all the feelings you shared, but there's a building block that happened. And I wanted to focus on that because it doesn't matter what exactly it is, the common denominators of success across various veterans who've been able to go forth and do great things have been built on that work. It's been built on putting those pieces together, putting that work. You pulled the time you were in the military, as enlisted, as an officer, the contracting time, the schooling, all those things that everyone had the attention and ability to do, right? You're not the only officer that was in the Air
Okay.
Force. You're not the only finance person. You weren't the only contractor. You're not the only person with a PhD. Again, all these things are available to many folks. It's just you were able to continue to see where that would go. And I think sometimes many veterans kind of get stuck on the destination and forgo the journey. And the fact is, you didn't know where the destination was going to end, but along the journey, that began to solidify what that may be. Because I'm sure you thought it was going to be this way, and then fast forward, you're like, I kind of had an idea maybe, or I didn't have this idea, but it surpasses anything you would have thought.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, I had an idea what I wanted to look like. I thought initially I was going to be, working one on one. I have to dream up my own clients, go find clients and stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that. But to come out the gate with a contract with the city, you know, that's like
Mm-hmm.
unheard of. Still, I was working one on one with individuals, but it's a
Yes.
little bit different than when you're contracted with the city, right? You ain't got to worry about how you're going to get
Hello.
paid. Okay.
That's security. Mm-hmm.
So it definitely ended up or took a different path than I realized. But it really goes back to, like you said, it's like one of my key things. Freedom to me is not a destination, it's a journey. Right. And it took, other people believing in me enough for me to step out on faith because I was, surprisingly enough, yeah, even captains, even doctors still questioned themselves. Right. And I was one of
Mm-hmm.
those ones. I'm like, I don't know, about the military was all I knew.
Right.
I ain't know nothing about no entrepreneurship or civilian life, but I knew what I didn't want,
Mm.
right? I knew I didn't want to work for nobody else. So that's what drove me. So you're absolutely right. It's the building block, and nothing is perfect.
Mm.
Nothing is perfect. You got to take step after step, because I'm one of those ones that you mentioned. I wanted to see the whole picture. Like,
Yes.
Lord, how is this going to end up?
Mm-hmm.
But I had to learn. You got to take it day by day, step by step, and the path will unfold in front of you. You just got to have faith that it's all going to work out over time.
And what's powerful here is, and this is going to come out um, with a series of other interviews. And in this instance, we have a veteran who did her time, minority, retires. There's another interview with a veteran who did his time, minority. He gets out early because of injury, medical.
Mm.
He ascends in the corporate world and has done things that are amazing. But the common denominator is that for the person who may have had their time cut short because of a disability or injury or what have you, or someone who did their 20, when they walk out, it doesn't matter if you did your 20 or you did your 4 years or what have you, you're looking out there at the world saying, now what? Because however you left the service is behind you. And that's just
Oh,
the reality. And I think there's one of the salient points I'm seeing the theme of here is um, one of the points that stands out to me was you can do it if you do it. And to me, that spoke volumes. That came from Mr. J. Alexander Martin, actually the vice president of and co-founder of FUBU Clothing Apparel, who also was a veteran. And
okay.
he in his journey, it was interesting to pull that out because you can do it if you do it, right? You have the ability to do something like Nike, just do it, but you have to do it. Moving with intention, putting together those pieces, and just literally looking at everything as a lesson. Because the fact is, the military wasn't the end all be all for you, though you did 21 years. Contracting wasn't the end all be all, even though you did the time you did. Even where you're at now, there is no end all be all. It's all part of a bigger journey. Now, consider, like what you just said, it's unheard of to walk out and just land a city contract. People look at you like, man, what is, well, so, for the uninitiated, right, we could call it what it is. When you're blessed and highly favored, things begin to align themselves because you were working towards a goal. But I think that being able to kind of work towards something and then now looking at us here, right? So the only reason we're even having this conversation is because we met on Clubhouse. We literally had a
That's it.
conversation on an app, and I mentioned that because a lot of these series people are saying, oh, another Clubhouse. No, this is another opportunity that we leverage technology, but like I keep stressing to people, it's great that you're networking, it's great you're meeting people, but if you're not moving into the real world and doing something with that, then what is it for? And literally, it's you can do it if you do it. And Dr. Ant, I'm and I told you, I said, look, we created the Veterans Network Club. We're holding rooms, and I said, you know what? We need to have rooms for a variety of different things. We're starting LGBTQ rooms. We're doing conversation on financial literacy, minority veterans, fill in the blank, people coming in supporting. But the fact of the matter is, it's all helping each other because we can't do it alone. And you said, hey, I'm here, I'm willing, I'll help, we'll do something. And we're holding space in and outside the app. Because again, I stress that because those that are in the app, great, but we're also here. You see us now. And I think putting all that together begins to shift how we articulate and look at things because you were in the right place at the right time, but you were ready and all that stuff was there. From here, we don't know where things will go. And the connections that are being made and the collaborations, to me, just really sing or scream that if you're moving with intention and you're just doing the work, things will begin to align themselves. But the key point you said was asking for help. And that's a part I think we struggle with as veterans because we watch major league sports and they have a pitching coach, a strength coach, a coach for everything when you're a professional. Yet when it comes to our lives, we think we don't need a coach. Everybody you look up to has a coach, yet you think you don't need a coach. The people you look up to who are coaches have coaches, but you think you don't need a coach. Leave the ego outside. Stop it. A coach has a coach. Everyone needs some help. And I think that's a key point to what you mentioned because the points are there and tangible, but the fact that you didn't have the ego of, well, I'm a 21-year veteran and I got my PhD. Come on.
Man, please. Like you said, you can network all day, especially when you're talking about these apps. You're right when we met on Clubhouse, but does the network continue on the outside? It's like I reached out to you. I saw what you was doing in that, in the room and Veterans Network. I hit you up on IG. I ain't gonna sit back and be like, well, I'm Dr. Ann. If you want me to help him with this or help him with that, gosh. I was like, man, can you help me with this? Can I like to do this or do that? So, and I've done that several times on Clubhouse, where people in their profile, I see a connection or an interest and I'll hit them up. There's no shame in my game. I always say, don't let the doctor in front of my name fool you. I keep it real. If I need help or I can see how we can collaborate or anything, a win-win situation, I'm all for it. And you're exactly right. Coaches need coaches. So I totally agree with you there, brother.
And again, for us, born as veterans, as minorities, right? There's a lot of things that we're working against, right? You're dealing with the stigmas of just being a veteran. So you add whatever ailments you may have or disabilities you may have. Then you add being a minority, and you add being a woman. Like there's so many things that we're kind of struggling with, and the last thing we need is to add on top of that our own baggage needlessly because we don't have the ability to just reach out and say, hey, I'm trying to do this because again you're gonna miss all the shots you don't take. There's nothing that you would have lost with just asking a question. I'm telling you, literally, for some people, I think that what you said, what stands out to me is that there's someone watching this who potentially may be in a place where they're like, you know what, Dr. Anna, ain't worth it. And it's like, you know what, that one knock that you're about to not knock could be the one that opens a door to change everything for you. Like literally, like look at the ripple effect. Had you not gone to visit your brother, had you not looked at them, like think of all those intersecting points. Had you not downloaded this app and said, let me look into this damn thing one time. But it's just so many instances where if you think about it, if you didn't have the conversation and not left the Air Force and not gone commissioned, all these things, literally sometimes it's like there's a force trying to tell you, hey, listen for a second, right? Like your mentor, like the person you spoke to, don't make a life decision based off of someone's situation or something that's happening right now, because guess what? I bet you right now, any situation we may have encountered, we were about to hang it up. Fast forward some years, ain't no one thinking about that person, that thing, or whatever it was at all.
Very true. I mean, it's so true.
So I want to get real surgical now. I need a doctor to come out here. So we validated and established the different things that you've done and your passion for helping veterans, folks, and financially. You've done it yourself. You walked the walk. You've talked the talk. That said, what is something you would say that you would diagnose, right, when we're talking financially, that is plaguing the veteran population when it relates to the financial aspect of things? Because at the end of the day, right, if you're a doctor, right, you see people coming in, it's like, man, if people would just take sugar out their diets, they wouldn't be obese. I see them all the time. Or if people would just do this one thing, I wouldn't see this finance. There's something you're seeing that it's a pattern. So my question is, in your experience and your time across doing all these things, what are some of the common things that you're seeing that it's like if people would just do a few of these different things, it'll at least start the process to shift things?
Yeah, man. Yeah, there's a couple of things. I would say the first thing, right, especially those that are still serving, right, you have the security of that paycheck on the first and the 15th, right? So instead of looking that as, yeah, I got this money coming in and blowing it on just, the new cars or all the gadgets, the house,
What you
whatever
saying? You
have
saying I
you.
can't go off post and buy that car that they said I could get for nothing? You say I can't buy the $80,000 cars, the E1 Airman, just come to
That's it.
service?
Something like that. Yeah, something like that. But if you would just take that money and start somewhere, and just to piggyback off of something that you just said, I got to circle back around to it. This ain't just for the E1s, okay?
Hello.
This this is for those captains, those majors, those colonels. More money, more problems, okay? So it's just that, just using the security that you have to help
Mm-hmm.
and then transcend into the next thing is to look for your future. Start planning for that transition because transition is inevitable. You cannot stay in the military forever.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you have to start planning for that, whatever that means for you, whatever your priorities are, start where you are. And it don't have to be a big amount of money, set up an allotment or automatic savings or whatever, have it get into the habit of living. I know it's said a lot of times, living below your means. Perfect example, man. When I transitioned, I mean, when I crossed over, became an officer as a second lieutenant, I lived on my tech sergeant pay.
Mm-hmm.
I was an E6 when I made that transition. But because of the fact I was used to living off of, E6 pay. So everything else was gravy, right? I called it my lieutenant mobile. I had a Nissan. But it was paid for. I eventually paid it off, but I lived on that E6 pay because I knew, okay, I got about good 10 more years in. I'm finna set myself up. Did I splurge on things? Yes. Now, I'm not saying to live like a frugal
Mm-hmm.
person, but I had my priorities. And once my priorities were funded, then I did whatever I wanted to do. I travel, I shop, um, but you have to do those things. But it really starts off with, if I can say anything, you got to change your mindset around money. No matter, you might have these limiting beliefs. If you're anything like me, money wasn't talked about in my household.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see anybody, with houses and
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. So you have to change your mindset first, then the money will follow. A lot of people, and that's what I do with my, the veterans that I work with. Yeah, we can talk about the numbers all day, but I'm going to start with, okay, what's important to you? Why do you want to become debt free? What are those limit beliefs around that you have? Are you one of those ones? Oh, you always going to have a car payment. Oh, okay. I grew up in the project, so it's always going to be like this. Now let's deal with that type stuff first, and then we'll get down to numbers. But that's what I would really say is to start with that mindset, prepare for your transition, and just use the security of the paycheck that you have, whether you're still in or my veterans that that have already transitioned out. Have you
Mm-hmm.
filed that VA claim? Don't leave no money on the table.
Which is another good point. You have some folks
No.
that may have left service and they have benefits and they may come in to finally getting around to that claim or whatever happens. The principles remain the same. regardless of whether you're serving or you're out of service, where you could literally make use of what you have if you're intentional with it. To the point you mentioned about the mindset, I'll tell you, as a Latin, as Latino, family coming from the Caribbean, that as far as mindsets are concerned, I could tell you that my grandfather died, um, you know, building properties in another country he was never going to live in, because the mindset was, I'm coming to the United States to work, and then I'm going to build back home, and I'm going to go retire home. And guess what never happened? There was no retiring back home. There was a house that was built that it was in another country that no one ever enjoyed, and others basically were able to benefit off of, while you were here renting and just being dependent on something else because you wanted to. It's almost like balling on the weekend, right? Like you work all week just a ball on the weekend, but you got some people, especially in the immigrant community, where they're literally living under their means, but it's because there's a mindset shift. And there's a difference. This is not that you're taking care of folks back home. I'm talking about if you have the ability to invest in yourself and do something. For some of us, it's like, well, this is not my home, so I'm going to build back home. Well, what's the intention behind that? Because if your thought process is, I want to go live there, so you're gonna build a house and work 20 years here to go retire and spend what the last five? Like that makes no sense. You know what I mean? Like, and again, it's getting down to the why of what exactly is it that you want to do. Nothing says that you can't retire and uproot yourself and go where you want to go. It happens all the time. People go expats. They go to Philippines and never come back. But you're here for the next 10, 20, 30 years. What's the plan? What's the goal? Things change. Maybe you don't want to leave after 20, 30 years. Maybe you're settled in. You got grandkids now. That's the reality that we face as folks that just don't have those tools to change the conversation. And I would offer to you that even these conversations are just not part of the veteran space, the minority space, or many bubbles where it's like, what is financial literacy? Right? Just work and things will magically happen one day. And the reality is that there are fundamental truths that can be applied no matter where you are at. You said something which is also more money, more problems. And I don't care what anyone says, if you add a zero to your paycheck, add a zero to your debts, you are in exactly the same situation. If 80% of your income goes to some kind of debt, I don't care if you make $1,000, 10,000, or 100,000, or a million, you are dealing with the same headache at just greater magnitudes. And again, it's easier to say, well, I'd rather have $100,000 headache or a million. No, calm down now. At the end of the day, you'd be surprised. You have some people that, like you see it all the time. Multimillionaires will commit suicide or something will happen because literally they're dealing with the pressure of that. So I say all that to say that, it sounds cliche sometimes, but I think there's a power in understanding that there is fundamental truths. It doesn't matter really what you make. If you understand that how to leverage what you have, it'll make a difference. If you can't manage $1,000, you can't manage $10,000. You can't do $10,000 with 100 grand. What you gonna do? And I would ask you, is that something that you've seen where folks, they may come into something. They may come into a good paying job or some money, and it's like literally your bad habits that you had when you had $10 now are bad habits with $100,000 or what have you.
Oh my gosh, yes, man. Just like perfect examples, our veterans, once we transition, like you said, a lot of us may not know about our benefits, right? So, or the VA takes longer than expected. So you have these veterans, they file for a claim, it takes, 3 or 4 years and they get that back pay from day one. And you're talking about 10, 20, 30, 40,000. I've met with this one client. He had like $50,000 worth of back pay from his claim. And I was like, I'm so thankful you're talking to me because I don't want you to blow that money. You know what I mean? Get that lump sum. Let's get a plan in place so when that it hit, you know what to do with it. And yet you can blow some, plan for your blow money. You know what I mean? Celebrate, not, or go on vacation, but don't just straight ball out and just go crazy with it. Make a plan for it. So I definitely have seen that. And let me just get my hands on you before you get that money so we can put a plan in place for that money. So exactly. Uh-oh, I can't hear you. You're muted.
Oh, there you go. So for those that are, can you hear me now? I think we're good.
Yes.
For those out there that may not be aware of the different types of financial entities, I'll call them financial planners, wealth management, Can you break down what those things are? Because there's different levels to the game when it comes to finance, and I think it's good to also understand that there are different folks that you will see depending on where you're at and how you begin to move in your financial planning journey.
Oh yeah, great question, DP. Yeah, so I'm what's called a certified financial coach. You have financial coaches out there, and that's not certified, but I am certified and accredited financial coach and a financial fitness counselor. That means we go above and beyond. We have ethical things that we have to live by. But a financial coach, what I do is I help you with your personal finances to lay that foundation, right? To help you with that mindset to come up with savings plans or debt management plans, looking at showing you how to read a credit report to improve
Mm.
your credit score, that type stuff to lay the foundation. So then you have financial advisors or, certified financial planners. Those are the ones that get more into um, investing, your mutual funds, your retirements and stocks and stuff like that. I don't do that, but I have a lot of relationships with when I once I build you up and get you a strong foundation so that you get to a point where you're ready to invest, then I can make recommendations or you can find someone on your own. But that's a great point, knowing the difference between the two, because working with someone like me, I'm not trying to sell you life insurance. I'm not trying to sell you mutual funds or IRAs or stuff like that. I'm providing a service. My service is what you're paying for. And I help you with your personal finance, debt management, savings, credit, and mindset and stuff like that.
And I think that's a good point to kind of bring out because it helps just to understand that someone may not be, and again, we've talked about the service member planning. We've talked about the veteran maybe who didn't plan but might have options. So it doesn't matter where you're at. It's never too late to start the journey of doing something. Granted, ideally you'd want to start earlier, but it doesn't mean that all is lost because they didn't do anything. Because to your point, you could have a veteran turn around and get a back pay, and it's just like, hey, you got 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 grand of back pay that you weren't thinking on and you did not need. You are now in a position to make some calculated decisions that can improve things exponentially, but understanding even with a conversation with you what the basics of their situation is, and even then knowing what questions to ask. Because sometimes we become, Google experts or YouTube things, or try to play the game ourselves, and there's nothing wrong with that. You can self-teach yourself, but if you're gonna really invest money or do something like that, I think it just behooves you to be more literate and at least ask the questions. Again, Dr. Ann's not going to be the one to actually put you into different investment vehicles and whatnot and products, but the information to begin to look into that, I think, is the key to stress, because some folks just need to get their stuff together before you can even look at investing. You can't invest if you need to go ahead and get yourself from out this daggone debt to begin with. You can't invest what you don't got. So let's get you straight first, and then give you the outlook of what the bigger options are, and then here's a warm handoff or at least information to ask the right questions.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of people that I talk to, they may say something like, well, I want to become an entrepreneur, start my own business. My first comment is, if you can't handle your personal finances, you surely ain't going to be able to handle your business finances, and that can get you in a whole lot of trouble. So, like I said, I just like the service that I provide provides that foundation, and you can build on it from there however you see fit, but you got to have a solid, firm foundation before you step out there, or you should.
Yes. And we'll bring up your site where they can find you here in a minute, but I think that it's just good to be able to just highlight those points because, again, we have the ability to take what we learned in service and apply it. What I love about these one-on-one conversations, it's one to highlight in veteran success stories, and also a salient point in this one being creating a financial future for veterans. But it's just really being able to identify that as you see this series, there's a common denominator. No one here just snapped a finger and it just happened. This is intentional work. It sounds great that 300 grand in 3 years. That was 3 years of intentionally moving and operating through the world. Yes, some splurges, yes, some moments of living life, but intentional movement. You went from a E6 to a O1. You stood at E6. You know what I mean? You were enlisted. You stood at that pay. Then you went off. Like, these are things that can happen in so many ways. You get a promotion where you're at. That's a sizable promotion. Do you need to go ball out with that? You got to enter your bonus because you did a great job. What do you, these things are happening all over the place. You got that rating. All of a sudden, you have an extra 1,000 or 2,000 or what have you. You have a back pay that show. Again, in the veteran space, there are so many ways where this can apply to where if you just at least have a plan, you can go so much further versus, man, let me tell you about how I blew through all this stuff. It's like, well, that's a good story. And however,
Right.
one of the things that again, I don't portray or play to be a financial person in any shape, fashion, or form outside the world. But in conversating and having a financial planner and talking about these things, one of the mindset shifts I had to do was understanding that my money needed to turn into my employees. And I'll say it again. If you have dollars, you need to make them work. And when I heard this, and this thing clicked for me, because someone said if your money's not making your money, you're messing up. You could go out there and make money, but ideally you want to get to a place where your money makes you money. And when you start to embrace that concept that, again, well, let's take Private Joe, got out of service, been out of work for a while, gets back pay, disability, whatever. He's sitting on 10 to 50,000. Let's just call that what it is. That's 10 to 50,000 little employees that could go do something for you. And if you look at it that way, you better come back and bring me a return on my investment, not just sit there. And the reason I'm saying it this way is because you know what we do. Man, that bank account looking nice. I don't want to do anything to it because we need to stop that. If you just are saving things to make it look right and just to have a little bank account that makes you feel good about yourself, well, that's nice. But really, are they working? They're just there stalling, doing nothing. It's like seeing a whole bunch of employees just looking at your back. I don't want to see you get out in the field and bring me back some products. Bring me back some return on my investment. Bring back a friend, i.e., I send out, $1,000. I want to see 1,200 come back at some point. And if you start to look at find your relationship with finance that way, I think it changes things. So I wanted to just share that because when I heard that, that shifted my mind. And then another point, and I want to kind of get your impression on this, is someone said, I don't like to spend the money I earn. I only want to spend the money that my money makes for me. And if you add that to what I just said, that puts you in a whole different world. And again, I'm not saying that, oh, you guys, no. It doesn't matter what it is. It's if you begin to look into a place of saying, look, I'm investing this, and then I'm going to make some plans off of what may come back later. Now you're moving in a different direction because now it's just your relationship is changing as to how you view it. And the people who are living at the top levels of the world, the 1%, the elite and so forth, that's how they're managing their funds. That's how they are looking at their stuff. You know what I mean? Everything I just said, that came from Grant Cardone. Hello. Okay. What do you think about these things?
I absolutely agree. Meaning that one of the avenues that I was able to use to reach my financial freedom is real estate, right? And the book that changed what you said is the idea of what in the book Rich Dad Poor Dad is called income producing assets, rental properties, where you have this home, whether I use it with my VA loan or whatever, no down payment, whatever have you. You have someone in there making the mortgage payment, and I have some extra money, cash flow, that I can use to what? Pay my own bills. I can use to go on vacation. That's what I'm talking about. Is those income producing assets. Yeah, that you have, that those investments are monetizing your lifestyle. But once again, that's a little bit more advanced. If you don't have that foundation set, right now, if you don't know how to save, you don't have that emergency fund, or got credit card debt off at the yin yang. It just really depends. Finance is personal. That's why it's called finance.
Yes.
So it depends on your individual situation. But as you progress more, your foundation is set. I absolutely agree. And the vehicle that I use besides, my Roth IRAs and stuff like that is real estate. I normally don't like debt. The only debt that I will, make a move on is when I'm buying rental properties. And even with that, I go crazy to pay it off as soon as possible because I like positive cash flow
Mm-hmm.
versus, appreciation and stuff like that. But everybody's
Mm-hmm.
different. There's different takes on it. But I totally agree. You want
Mm-hmm.
your money to be making money for you once you get to that point in your financial life.
And this is why I mentioned this, right? So one, this is called because sometimes there's a little bit of this that happens. This isn't just talk. The reason I wanted to introduce the concept here is to show that one, there's levels to the game. Because if we
Oh,
talk
yeah.
about there's different type of financial folks, I'm like, okay, now that we're talking a little more intentional here, now it's like, oh wait a minute, y'all over here talking about a whole different thing. Cash flow positive. What? Yes, that is what's possible. But I want to highlight, like you said, right? Some folks ain't there, but you need to know that that is there though. You're not there
Yes.
yet, but Anne ain't no bit different than you. She was in a place where she had to get her own stuff together first to be able to speak about what she's speaking today. The reason I said what I said is because it is the rich dad poor dad mentality concept, but it's in layman's term, right? Very simple stuff. And then Dr. Ann gave you the textbook answer, but it's basically the same thing. Look, take it how I said it, take it how she said it, but it's all comes back down to the very first thing Dr. Ann said, which was mindset. If you don't change your relationship with finance, you're never going to get anything different. It's like almost literally, Dr. Ann, I keep meeting the same guys and things just don't work for me. Well, you might want to change the kind of folks you're looking into. You might want to change the kind
Okay.
of women you're looking into. You keep looking for this trait and it keeps leading to this. Maybe you might want to switch what you're doing. Like that whole definition of insanity. You keep doing the same thing over and over and you think you're gonna get a different result. The same applies to everything. So the mindset shift here towards the finance piece gives you the ability to, live the life, not just because of some like infomercial, like live the life of your dreams and buy this and overnight. No, 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 no. It is
No.
possible you can get there, but this was a journey that Dr. Ann took to be able to get there. So creating a financial future for veterans, really, there's no secret outside of moving with intention, education, and literally having these conversations. I would offer to people this right here is how we begin the process of literally creating a financial future for veterans. It's having these conversations, beginning them. Because today, it's just an introduction. Don't get it twisted. You can't just watch this and you're off the go. No, this is who Dr. Ann is. This is me. Because when we come back, we're going to talk about specifically credit or a debt or this and that's how you start to get into details. But we got to quantify the conversation first to the point that Dr. Ann was just Ann, and then enlisted, and then an officer, and then a contractor, and then an entrepreneur, and so on. The story goes. But now what we're trying to do is pay it forward. Part of this concept of Veterans Network is this: is having this conversation to one pick each other's brain, find like-minded people, because I believe that with technology we're all trying to move in the same way. Like we're all looking for the same thing, but we just don't know how or where. And if this can become the beginning pieces of a conversation for someone to at least begin the journey of finding out what may work for them, then we've accomplished something. Because this is the conversation that sadly I never had before. You didn't have it either. You had to self-educate yourself. So now it's like, look, you can save yourself the time because yes, again, Anne went ahead and did her own research, but that took time. But imagine how much further ahead you could be if you just had at least the building blocks of these conversations that in our circles as veterans we don't have. So I just wanted to just really kind of quantify that because I think it's a strong point that our people need to hear.
I totally agree. Start where you are. Take the information that you're getting, but also start moving on it. Little baby steps. I know I heard someone say, well, this coach of mine last year, don't become an information hoarder, right? You're learning all this stuff, you're going on Google, you're listening to us, but you don't take any action.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what you want to do as well. Get the information, but then sit down and be like, okay, what can I do? Or am I ready?
Mm-hmm.
Ask yourself those hard questions. Are you ready to take action and just do it?
Well,
Yeah.
look, I will talk about action. What am I looking at, Doctor Ann? Help me. I'm
Hey,
trying to take some action. For people out
take
there
some
who need
action.
some action, drannjames.com. What can people find here? There's a lot of goodness here. Give me the quick battle roadmap of how and what people should be looking at when they come to your site.
Yeah, yeah. I'm going to start right there in the middle. If we kind of hit on it, it says transform your relationship with money and get the freedom to do what you want when you want without ever worrying about money. So you have to start there, changing that mindset and transforming your relationship. And that's what working with me does as well. Just a little bit about myself. Look at her. Look
Hello.
at her.
Look at that. Look, hey, you gotta own it.
Hey.
And I
But yeah,
love this because and it's funny, right? Again, we have the way I like to do this is very natural and on the spot because it just comes across more real. But literally, what's the first thing we talked about, right? You
we
can do it if
take
you do it.
action.
Take action. You would have thought I'd say I have not been to the site, people. I promise you, I wanted to
Yep.
see it in real life with you all because I think this is truly just again we're in alignment of what we're talking about. But I just love you have to take action. At some point, you got
That's
to stop
it.
googling stuff. Stop looking things up. Just do something. Because all this talk,
That's
guess what? You done missed 2, 3, 4, 5 years worth of making actions happen while you're still thinking about what could have been.
Yeah, exactly. You know, so it just really depends on where you are in your life right now, DP. Let's just ask some questions. But if
Mm-hmm.
you just scroll down to the bottom, you'll see that you're able to
Mm-hmm.
work with me for free. There's an option that says not work with me for free. Let me change that up. It's a money chat where we can jump on a call to see if we're a good fit.
Yeah.
What I like to say, battle buddies. You know, I don't work with just anybody.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have to be at a certain place. So that's where
Mm-hmm.
that money chat is. It's a free 15-minute call we jump on.
Good.
My money battle plan. That's my signature offer where I work with individuals one on one. You walk away with an actual plan for your money. You get homework starting out working with me, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I give you homework so that when we meet, it's more down nitty gritty. We're getting into the numbers. We're talking about some things, and so forth. So that's the signature money battle plan. And then another option is my corporate wellness for those organizations, right, that have employees. You know, finances that I learned through my research, most employees are distracted at least 3 hours a week while they're at work because of their personal finances. And if you're a
Mm-hmm.
business owner, what does that mean? You know, less productivity, less revenue, that type stuff. So I actually work with organizations as well to come in and provide training, financial management, goal setting, whatever it is the organization needs, we can work together to make it happen. So, yeah, you'll just find out how to
Mm-hmm.
contact me. My speaking, if you would like for me to speak, my podcast option is up at the top as well.
Well,
We touched on it.
I want to plug your podcast, but before I get there, I want to tell you
Okay,
these questions right here, man. You hitting people hard with these questions now. Are you tired
that's
of
it.
pretending that everything is okay when in reality your stuff is a mess? Do you have fear of failure? Are you afraid to leave the military or your job because at the end of the day you stuck to the paycheck? I cannot tell you how many people I know that know good and well they do not belong in the job they are in, but they don't have a choice because their situation is so jacked.
Yeah,
Hello.
that's it, man. Like I said in the beginning, I was afraid to get out of the military because that was all I knew. I had got used to the security of that paycheck. You know, so a lot of people stay in the military or stay in a civilian job because they have bills to pay. You know, they
Mm-hmm.
ain't gonna just step out there. But if you find yourself weighted down, you're in a job that you hate,
Mm-hmm.
then yeah, come talk to me about it.
We got a podcast situation I hear about here. Talk to me.
Yeah, that's new. That's new coming out. It's launching 1 February. The Freedom Battle Buddies of Color podcast, and that's taken another passion of mine is working with women veterans of color and just hearing their experiences and shine a light on their expertise and their trials and tribulations. That, as you mentioned in the beginning, DP, as not just as a woman but a woman of color. You know, we have unique experiences, and I want to highlight that. You know, I'm not down in, y'all know I love women veterans, but I just want to highlight the expertise or the experiences of women veterans of color. And we're just going to be talking about everything freedom, right? Because I believe that, you know, for those of us that have served, we've been fighting for other people's freedoms for who know how long.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, military free, lifestyle freedom. Now it's time to fight for our own freedom. So we're going to be talking about financial freedom, lifestyle freedom, and everything in between. So that launches 1 February. You can find that on Apple, Google Podcasts, and also Spotify. So I'm super excited about that.
DrAnnJames.com, where you can literally reach out, have this conversation, learn, Get your financial battle buddy plan put together. Tackle this thing the way you tackle any other kind of operation, right? Moving with intention, not just leaving things to happenstance. I think it's just amazing. I'm so humbled for you being here, your time. I think being able to share the space, do what we're doing, paying it forward, having these conversations. I'm excited for the podcast. I'm excited for creating and holding space for people that can see and identify themselves with the variety of goodness that's out here. I commend that, because you could sit there and say, you know what, and we don't have these things. Well, guess what? We're gonna create it. Well, I wish we had someone talking about. You know what? Let's do it. Let's do that. Whatever your skill may be, even if it's like someone like me who's just gonna sit here and start asking questions and want to talk to somebody and say, "Hey, man, let's jump on camera." Do the thing you can do, because if your pebble and my pebble and somebody else's pebble gets put together, eventually we build mountains, and we can build foundations and build empires by being able to just understand that we can get further together than trying to compete. Where, "Nah, Doctor Ann, you stay over there. I could do my own." No, stop that noise. We need to come to a place of being able to collaborate, especially as veterans. We did it in the military. Why can't we do it after that? And you see in the bottom, I've always had this rolling ticker. If you're seeing this, right, you know what time it is. Let me know in the comment section your branch of service and what times you served. But I don't care what your job was, and I don't care what your rank was, because it's not about that. What I care is that Dr. Ann is a veteran. She served. This was her time, and we are here. Because for many veterans, you know what happens. The best times of my life was when I was... Stop that. You served. I recognize your service. I honor your service. But let's talk about today. Because sometimes, you know what happens. You know for a fact there's a lot of retirees that just cannot move forward. They have been... All I've known, Dr. Ann, is I enlisted when I was 17. And now I'm... What do I do with myself? I'm still walking around making my bed hot. Stop it. There's a way forward. And I think that happens many a times in our veteran space, where like the best days are behind us. And the financial literacy piece also factors that, right? You had, first and the fifth teams, you had that pay coming in, you had the job security, you had not for wants, and now you're on your own. Now things ain't as easy as you thought they would be. Because in the real world, ain't no one gonna give you nothing. There's no guarantee. And especially now with this pandemic, please, even if you have a secure job, you learn that that's not secure. And I think these conversations are needed more now than ever to say, look, if they were going to let you go anyway, you might as well take a chance on yourself.
I totally agree. I totally agree with everything that you said, and the same with my podcast, yes, it's about women veterans of color, but I don't care what rank you are. So no, my podcast isn't just going to be doctors. It ain't just going to be officers on there. It ain't just going to be retirees. I don't care if you serve 4 years, 30 years, active duty, reserve, guard, Army, Air Force, Navy, and I'm also going to have, those that support us, DP, right? Because that's what the term battle buddies is all about. We didn't get it alone. Yeah, we're the ones that serve, but we also have family members. I know my mother, when I deployed as a single mother, she moved to South Carolina to help raise my daughter. So we have those individuals that help to support us. So it's one team, one fight. And I really appreciate everything that you're doing, man. Just being so humble and open and receiving me, and I just really look forward to working with you in the future. That's for sure.
Definitely. And again, I appreciate you. So like I said, this is, it's like we know each other for a while, but it's because like-minded spirits moving in the right direction. But this is, again, the first of many conversations to happen. We hope that this has been a blessing to those that may see it, and a highlight to the fact that this one-on-one conversation is not highlighting just a person, but highlighting the fact that this person is just like you and I, and if they can do it, you can do it, right? If you can do it if you just do it. Dr. Ann started out as Ann, and all the accolades and things that people may see, they don't take away from the fact that you can achieve those things too. And I appreciate you. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you holding this space with us. And I'm looking forward to many, many more conversations as we begin to help our networks.
No doubt. Thank you so much for the opportunity to get in front of your audience, man. And I wish you much success with everything that you're doing, because you're busy.
Look,
you
man.
Busy, bro.
Man, look, we ain't got a lot of time, man. We got to get it in. We have to move, and we have to do it. You know what I mean? Look, We spent
Yeah,
enough
well,
time dragging feet, so let's go ahead and make something happen finally.
you're doing it, so I'm proud of you and good luck to you going
I
forward.
appreciate you. We'll be talking.